brothers and sisters. So I made a little day trip out today with some other Dominican brothers to Subiaco, where is this amazing place where Saint Benedict took refuge for 3 years in solitude in a cave praying, and it's there where he wrote the Rule of Saint Benedict, which has been the bedrock of Western monasticism since the 6th century. And it was in this valley where he founded 12 monasteries already in his lifetime. And so Benedict fled from the corruption of the city life with a strong impulse to seek God in solitude and in prayer, so that his mind and heart would just breathe in the atmosphere of God. And it was in that search for solitude that the Lord really formed his heart, and thank God that he did that, because monasticism, Benedictine monasticism, is such a gift to the church of the time. It preserved in many ways Western civilization. As the empire and as the civilization time was collapsing, it was largely because of Benedictine spirituality and the monastery system that the monasteries would become centers of learning and centers of culture, centers of faith, centers of civilization, guarding the knowledge of the classics and all the great learning that went before. They would be preserved by the monks and their libraries, and would continue a succession of thought upon which Western Europe and the West has been built on. And so in this cave, I'm in the cave now here in Subiaco, where St. Benedict prayed, and where he prayed for those 3 months, the most sacred of places. And so one of the things I'll just say briefly about St. Benedict, and part of the rule, is that when somebody goes to a monastery, the first question is asked is, what do you seek? And this is a very important question for all of us to ask daily. What am I seeking? Because the desire for God is the most precious of desires in our life. And it's the desire that we have to guard at all costs. Because so many false desires can crop up in our heart when we get too immersed into the ways of the world, or when we start to worship the creation instead of the creator, when we start to love creaturely things instead of God, when we prefer creaturely things instead of desiring them for the sake of leading us into prayer and praising God, And so Benedict always asks, and this is very part of the own very important lesson for all of us, what do you seek? And we have to ask this every day, because we have to guard that desire in our heart, that the desires of our heart are ultimately aimed towards the Lord, aimed towards God. And so thankfully we can ask God for this desire. We can pray, and even asking God for this desire is already grace at work in our souls, showing that God will want to strengthen the desire in our hearts. Yesterday we spoke about St. Teresa of Avila, and again, she did such a brilliant guide in learning how to guard that desire and helping us grow in the desire for God. Because the more our desire for God grows more and more and more, then we would seek a life that will conform to this desire, because we will want to grow in the awareness of God in our life and of the Lord Jesus Christ. And so Benedict came into this cave and searched the face of Christ in the scriptures. He would have ate and drank the gospel, drinking in that heavenly truth, the light that has come into the world through Jesus Christ in such a powerful way, the light that guides our path to heaven, to the ultimate spiritual fulfillment of all human beings, to reach heaven through Christ in the power of the Spirit, to gaze on the Father and gaze on in that mystery that looms before all of us, the heavenly mystery of the beatific vision, that fancy word, beatific vision, to see God finally as God sees and knows and loves himself, that it's a vision of wisdom, to see the cause of all things and understand all things, and the mysteries of life will melt away into this vision of God. We will finally understand so much of why things has been the way it has been, and understand the ways of God. So Benedict in this place, no doubt guarded and grew in an intense desire for God. So when he left this cave, people gathered around him and wanted to live a Christian life. And they weren't doing something extraordinary. They were just living the ordinary Christian life. That's why monasticism, religious life, reflects and teaches the church what the norm of Christian life really looks like. A life of prayer, repeated prayer, a life centered on God, a life of charity. Benedictine monasteries are well known for its hospitality, welcoming the stranger as Christ Christ and the stranger hath come into the door, so offering that hospitality. So monasticism is a school of learning too for family life. Family life should somehow take on that rhythm of prayer and openness and learning and teaching and of the wisdom of, say, the monks and the nuns. And so we're so grateful to St. Benedict and the monasticism, that the bedrock of so much of the civilization in the West, but also the church in the West. And so, Bishop Robert Barron, in his series on St. Benedict, really alerts us to a lot of this and about the importance of this great tower. St. Benedict, who was one of the great patrons of Europe. So I'll show you now the cave. There you see Benedict meditating upon the cross of Jesus Christ, which is the source of his strength and a sense of God's love upon the cross.